Okay, welcome everybody. It's Peter Downs here from the Inclusion Club. Welcome to this webinar on inclusive cycling, how to make your program more inclusive. On behalf of our partners in this initiative, Cycling Australia, Vic Sport, Cycling Victoria, the Australian Paralympic Committee and the Australian Sports Commission, welcome to this webinar. At the moment we have 22 people online and 50 registrations for this particular webinar on inclusive cycling. So welcome everybody. This is a great collaborative venture. Today's topic, today's agenda. We'll be going through the agenda in a short introduction. I'll introduce in a short while, I will introduce our panel of experts for today. Then we're going to run through a very simple inclusion model, simply to get people thinking around the issues of inclusion of people with disabilities into cycling. Very quickly, we're going to have a look at that model. That should get people thinking and sort of framework our question time that we're coming up with our panelists. We had some registration, people who registered for this webinar sending some questions beforehand, and we're going to address those questions during our panel question time with our experts here. We also want to encourage people to ask questions as well during the webinar, and we'll be addressing those in the final session, and we also will address them following the webinar if we don't get time today. So, our team today. Myself, I'm from the Inclusion Club. I shall be hosting the webinar, but I'll be sending all the questions really to my three experts who are online right now, and they are Carol Cook, Tom Scalander and John Armstrong. I might just unmute rather, our panelists just to do a short introduction of themselves here, so you can at least put a voice to a name, to a face you have on the screen there, and let them introduce themselves. So I'll start with Carol. Carol, can you hear me online?
I can, Peter.
Hi, Carol. How are you going?
I'm good, thanks. Good evening, everybody.
Carol, would you just quickly give us a quick personal bio of about a minute or so long of your experience in this area, Carol?
Yes, I'm a person living with multiple sclerosis. I've been cycling for just over 2 years. I was a rower previous to my cycling, and was lucky enough to be included in the team for London and won a gold medal in the road time trial in the mixed T2 category, which means that I ride a trike.
Excellent, excellent. Before that, Carol, I read about you, you were a rower and a swimmer, is that right?
That's correct. I was a swimmer growing up in Canada, and was talent searched at a talent search day back in 2005 by the APC to take up the sport of rowing, which was a new inclusion in 2008. Unfortunately, our crew missed the cut by 0.8 of a second, and which was a bit heartbreaking. And a few years later, I switched to cycling.
Excellent, with good results. Good results. Thanks, Carol. We'll come back to you in a second, but there's Carol Cook. And let me now introduce Tom Scalander. I'll unmute Tom so we can hear. Tom, are you there?
Yes, I am, Peter. Good evening, everyone.
Good. Tom, if you could just give us a quick introduction to yourself as well.
Yeah, I work for Cycling Australia. I'm one of the two full-time paid people in our paracycling area. My boss is Peter Day. He works in Brisbane. I live in Sydney. And I've been working in paracycling for about 12 years, I guess. For the first half of that 12 years as a volunteer, as part of my community service, I think, but coaching for around 30 years, but in the last 6 or 7 years I've actually been full-time on the staff with Cycling Australia, and have been fortunate enough to work with a great bunch of athletes and attend the last 2 Paralympic Games as a paracycling coach. And I've forgotten how many World Championships now, but it's quite a lot. I've also had a history of being involved in the sport for many, many years. In fact, 45 years I think it is this year.
Whoa, well that's I'm going to see if our next panelist can beat you there. I'm not sure, he might be able to. But thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. And we'll jump back to you very shortly. Our next panelist is John Armstrong from Pedal Power ACT. Can you hear me, John?
Yes, I can, Peter. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Now, can you beat Tom for 45 years involvement in cycling?
No, there are some things there. Seniority is best left to the seniors, so I think Tom has got me there. And certainly Tom was actually quite modest he's been heavily involved both as a professional cyclist and in his coaching capacity over the years. So he certainly got me there.
Could you give a quick bio of yourself, John, and your current involvement with cycling?
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and welcome everybody to the webinar. Look, my background is probably for over 20-odd years. I've been heavily involved in coach education and coaching in cycling for a number of years. I currently run my own sports consultancy business, but some years ago headed up the National Coach Accreditation Scheme at the Australian Sports Commission, and currently now as on the Coaching Commission with Cycling Australia. I've been, as I mentioned, probably been coaching for about 20-odd years. During that period of time, have coached a number of different people, including 2 people to the Paralympics in Beijing, and currently coaching an athlete with intellectual disability.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, John, and we will definitely be coming back to you very shortly. So thanks, Cal, Tom, and John for their introductions there. And like I say, I want the bulk of this webinar to be really the questions to our panelists that we've had beforehand and during the webinar as well.